As Epictetus was giving his Stoic discourses at his school in Greece, a commotion could be heard at the back of the room. Hadrian had arrived. He was trying to come in without a fuss, but when you're the Emperor of Rome, the most powerful person on the planet, it's hard to keep a low profile. Nevertheless, eventually things calmed down. Epictetus got back to his discourses, while Hadrian listened. This man, Epictetus, an ex-slave with a hobbled leg, had become one of the world's renowned philosophers. The insanely wealthy and powerful from Rome would travel to hear him speak. The context was different, yet being surrounded by the wealthy and powerful wasn't necessarily new for Epictetus. He may have taught in his school as a free man, but as a slave, Epictetus served his wealthy master in the hall of Nero, one of history's worst tyrants. He would be bringing drinks and listening to the rich grovel and praise Nero for all the amazing things that he did. They lived in awe and fear of this man who could have someone killed by just saying the word. And in that same hall, at the same time, occupying a very different status, sat Seneca the Younger, acting as an advisor to Nero. Seneca and Epictetus were from the most different social positions imaginable. One a literal slave, and the other the fabulously wealthy advisor to the emperor. And yet without knowing it, posterity would have them making up 2/3 of the most well-known Stoic philosophers in history. They were in the same room. They could see each other, I'm sure, but they wouldn't have recognized each other for who they would become. Had they locked eyes, they would have just considered each other slaves. Epictetus would be seen as a literal slave by Seneca, as that's what he was. And Seneca would be seen by Epictetus as a slave to power and status and fear, like so many others in the room. As time marched on, Seneca would increasingly embrace his philosophy. He put himself through voluntary hardship, end his relationship with Nero, and eventually be forced to commit suicide after being implicated in a plot on the emperor's life. This development probably didn't even make it down to Epictetus, who was still working away as a slave at that point, but whose master had allowed him to study Stoicism under Musonius Rufus, at least. Upon earning his freedom, he opened up a philosophical school in Greece, where his teachings would become legendary, and the rich and powerful would travel from far and wide to hear this former slave. One of these powerful people who would come to hear Epictetus speak was Arrian, who was a studious but prominent man that wrote down verbatim the words of Epictetus. Somehow or other, these discourses made it into the hands of the public. "It isn't important to me if people don't think I'm capable of writing a book myself," Arrian wrote to a friend. "Nor will it matter to Epictetus if anyone views his discourses with disdain, because even when he was speaking, it was obvious that he had no other aim than to move the minds of those who were listening towards what is best." Sounds like a true philosopher. These discourses were popular in Rome, but without a printing press, I'm sure they were hard to come by. Even still, the emperor in training, Marcus Aurelius, knew a lot of powerful people, and his tutor, Rusticus, was friends with Arrian. Rusticus lent Marcus his copy of Epictetus' discourses. This had such a profound effect on Marcus, who at this point, although he would be known forever as the leader of one of the greatest empires the world would ever know, could not have predicted that he would also be seen as one of the most prominent philosophers, simply for his personal diary. This diary he had wished to have destroyed upon his death, but one of his people saw it and couldn't bring themselves to destroy it. It was instead printed into what would become the Meditations for others to absorb. For me, it's interesting the chain of connection between the big three Stoic philosophers. Seneca was the advisor to Nero. Epictetus would have been in the hall with Seneca at the time. The emperor Hadrian would come to be on friendly terms with Epictetus and listen to him speak. He would also recognize the potential in a young boy who would one day become Marcus Aurelius, philosopher king of Rome. These famous philosophers, although they didn't know each other personally, had just one degree of separation between each other. Things like this make me question reality entirely and believe it's all too perfect to be a coincidence. What are the chances that these three powerful people have an unbroken chain that connects them through history and binds them together in posterity? It makes me think that we may be in a simulation, while also seeing that the logos really have put everything together perfectly. Are there any other cool unbroken chains like this in history? I hope you liked that video. Here at Project Stoic, we are focused on creating videos around Stoicism, philosophy, spirituality, all wrapped under the umbrella of storytelling with contemporary lessons. Now, although this channel is new, we do have over 165,000 followers over on TikTok talking about the same stuff. So you know what that means? That means I'm a TikToker. But this YouTube channel is new, so if you'd like to support, help grow it, consider subscribing, liking the video, and of course, watch more. Anything to boost us up in the algorithm. Happy you're here. I hope you learn a lot, and we'll talk to you soon.